You're listening to Living While Leading with your host, Sharon Ehrlich.
Welcome to the Living While Leading podcast. My name is Sharon Ehrlich, and I am the founder and CEO of Living While Leading. I support women in their ambitions to thrive in their careers and live their lives unapologetically and on their own terms. Today, we are going to talk about apologies. Yes, that's right, apologies. I have noticed recently in my coaching practice and in the workshops that I deliver to large organizations that women tend to have the tendency to apologize, even when there is an apology warranted. So, for example, I've heard things like, I'm sorry to break this to you. I'm sorry, may I interrupt you? I've had women apologize for promoting themselves and the wonderful things that they've accomplished in their careers. Apologize for being passionate about certain interests that they have. Apologizing for their body image or even their life choices. And the fact of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with apologizing because it builds trust and it helps you build relationships. But making a habit of apologizing reduces the sincerity of the apology, but also it starts to weaken your self belief. I want to spend a little bit of time unpacking this. So let's start. First, I think it's worth examining what the impact of an apology could mean. It could suggest to the listener that you have a lack of confidence. It could also really have an impact on communication and hinder communication by not being so direct. It also could put you in a subservient position, which I think is something that we all need to be conscious of. I'd like to spend some time exploring the way that you might be able to reframe apologies so that it can become empowering and it doesn't diminish your authority in the workplace. Let's be honest, the root causes of over apologizing are deeply embedded in stereotypes. I've apologized and you've apologized. But think about it. When you begin a sentence by saying, sorry for asking, but this little word, sorry, has the power to erode your authority and make you seem less confident. But why do you tend to over apologize anyway? Let's unpack some of the reasons. There are three main reasons that lead to habitual over apologizing. The first one is social conditioning. Think about it. As little girls, we are conditioned to be polite and accommodating, not to start any trouble, not to make any waves. We are told and it's believed that we should be the ones who nurture relationships and always maintain harmony. And we are supposed to do that at the expense of ourselves, which normally means that we minimize our voices. We give other people's voices more priority. We don't share our opinions. And if you do this enough, and if you start doing it from a young age, that starts to become a habit. The other reason that could lead to over apologizing is fear of perception. You don't want to be viewed negatively. You don't want to be viewed as being aggressive or bossy. How many of us have been told that we're bossy when actually we're just being assertive, right? And you want to soften your approach. You want to seem less demanding. And so the way to achieve that is to shroud whatever it is that you're saying in an apology. A third reason is self-doubt. We've all heard of imposter syndrome. And this imposter syndrome oftentimes leads you to believe that you're going to be exposed as a fraud. And so you want to downplay your experience and your expertise and your authority. And you do that by apologizing. Do any of these sound familiar to you? One of the first steps in managing the habit of over apologizing is recognizing your triggers. So I would really challenge you to think about and reflect on every time you've apologized and see if they fit into any of these categories. If they don't, and if there's another trigger that you have, please let me know because I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say about it as well. Let's talk about some ways that you can regain your authority and communicate more assertively. The first and very important step is to understand the reasons for your impulse to apologize. Think back on those interactions. Who is it that you're talking to? What are the situations? And that's part of the second step, which is the self awareness and the mindfulness. Ask yourself, is there a particular situation that I'm confronted with where I always default and apologize? Is there a particular person or group of people that I interact with where I feel the impulse to apologize? Knowing this is half the battle because what you can do is already start to catch yourself before you start to apologize and quickly think of ways that you can reformulate your sentence. And reframing is the third step, which is absolutely key. Think about this. This sentence, sorry, I don't have this project completed yet, could potentially be rephrased as, thanks for your patience. I will have this project delivered by Friday. You see what it does there? Not only does it remove the apology, but it puts you in a position of authority and owning the outcome, which is what you want to do and which makes you much more of an assertive communicator. This is the point in the show where I say if you've listened this long, then probably we should be connected on LinkedIn. Why don't you send me a message with a connection request and tell me that you found me on the podcast? I look forward to following you in my LinkedIn feed. Let's review a few examples of some other ways that you could reframe apologies. So, for example, instead of saying sorry for bothering you, you could say, is now a good time to talk? Instead of saying, I'm sorry, but I don't agree. How about trying, I'd like to share with you a different perspective? Or instead of saying, sorry for breaking this to you, you could say, you're not going to like this, but, and you see how each of these sentences conveys a different level of confidence, right? You're no longer the shrieking person who is apologizing, somehow coming with your hat in hand. You are communicating much more assertively, standing in your power, and owning the statement. Now, of course, there are lots of ways that those particular sentences could have been reframed, but your intention is to speak in a way that authentically represents your speaking style, but also reinforces your authority. Saying sorry all the time doesn't serve you. It diminishes your authority and really erodes your confidence, and it dilutes your message. If you want to communicate assertively about your needs, your beliefs, and your feelings in an open and honest and respectful way that also does not undermine your authority and preserves your dignity. I completely understand that you believe that if you don't apologize, that you're going to be less likable. But I can assure you that the opposite is true. People respect and trust leaders who communicate with clarity and confidence. And that's you. Whether you're at the middle of your career or the top of your career, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be working on building this muscle. So I really want to encourage you to reduce unnecessary apologies. It's not about changing your communication style, but shifting your mindset a little bit. This is about recognizing and embracing your worth, your expertise, and your rightful place to own the room. You don't need permission to assert yourself. Be confident and communicate in a way that affirms your authority. Drop the sorry and stand in your power. Remember, you're the solution to claiming what's important to you.
Thanks for listening today.